I wanted to make a bridge between this week's assignment on Walt Whitman and what we talked about last week regarding Emerson and Thoreau. You know, when we talked about Emerson, what we're seeing here is sort of the same idea being repeated over this time. Emerson starts out with very abstract ideas, and then Thoreau gets a little bit more concrete, and then it moves into Whitman, who is very concrete. For example, Emerson, remember his transparent eyeball. It's very abstract, that, you know, the eyeball sitting on the legs. And he's defining the I, the self, and he means the individual, but he keeps it on all the very abstract level and saying that it's a spiritual definition. It's part and particle of God. So when Thoreau writes about almost that same idea, he gets more concrete and he takes it to the political level. He says that all power of the state depends on the rights of that individual. And he's talking about that same individual that Emerson meant when he said the I and the self, as in self-reliance. So Emerson then called for an American bard. He wanted someone to put these ideas of democracy into poetic form and use common words, common man, for a common democracy. And that's what Whitman did. He gets the most concrete of all. Some say he gets a little too concrete with his examples. He says that to understand the individual that Thoreau and Emerson were talking about, to understand that individual, we need to accept and be aware of the living, breathing, sexual body and the soul that houses it, the male and the female. So, move over here and let's get these examples. So last week we talked about that eyeball. Let's just look at that again. Only this time keep this democratic idea in mind. Let me make this a little bigger. Okay, it's the same thing, only I'm just going to talk about this very last part that begins, standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air, and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes, I become a transparent eyeball, I am nothing, I see all, the currents of the universal being circulate through me, I am part or particle of God. The name of the nearest friend sounds then foreign and accidental. To be brothers, to be acquaintances, master or servant, is then a trifle and a disturbance. See, that's his fancy way of saying we should not have these distinguishing, you know, the between master and servant. Why are we calling each other that? Brothers or acquaintances, everyone, it's all the same. We are all the same, part and particle of God. I am the lover of uncontained and immortal beauty. In the wilderness, I find something more dear and connate than in streets or villages. In the tranquil landscape, and especially in the distant line of the horizon, man beholds somewhat as beautiful as his own nature. Now, this is just think of this in terms of Whitman and his Leaves of Grass. When Emerson says the distant line of the horizon, imagine that line of the horizon, but it is a field of grass. It's wide open nature. So when Whitman gets to Leaves of Grass and Song of Myself, he's still talking about these ideas. Only maybe you might say, instead of this abstract idea of this eyeball, he would put there a leaf of grass. But it's not a leaf that stands alone. It's a leaf that is absolutely stands alone. I just contradicted myself, but then Whitman does that too. It is a leaf of grass that stands alone, but you never see one, right? You always see leaves of grass. You see grass, and it means multiple. It's always in a field of green, right? And that is his idea of democracy. That it takes all the individuals to comprise a nation, a field of equals. Okay, so moving then up to Thoreau. Remember we talked last week a little bit about, I think we read parts of, this is Resistance to Civil Government, or on Civil Disobedience, on page 857. This is the last paragraph. Skip this up farther. Okay, and again, note what he says about the individual, because it's the same kind of message. The progress from an absolute to a limited monarchy, from a limited monarchy to a democracy, is a progress toward a true respect for the individual. Is a democracy such as we know it the last improvement possible in government? Is it not possible to take a step further towards recognizing and organizing the rights of man? He's not satisfied with the way it is, with the new democracy of the new nation. He wants it to be better. He says there will never be a really free and enlightened state until the state comes to recognize the individual as a higher and independent power. And that's just what Emerson was saying, that the individual is the highest power that there could be, part or particle of God, from which all its own power and authority are derived, and treats him accordingly. I please myself with imagining a state at last which can afford to be just to all men, and to treat the individual with respect as a neighbor. So again, all that emphasis on the individual, the awareness of it, but it's still a little bit abstract. And so, as I said, Whitman, because of Emerson, this is on the bottom of page 1005, and it's the intro to Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman is responding to Emerson's call for an American bard who would address all the facts of the animal economy: sex, nutriment, gestation, birth. Whitman puts the living, breathing sexual body at the center of these ideas. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the beginning. This was from Inscriptions on page 1024. And this was the title first used for the opening poems of Leaves of Grass in the 1871 edition. But see what this is like his thesis statement for his long epic poem. One's self I sing. And it begins, one's self I sing, a simple, separate person. And it's the same individual. He's talking about the individual of Emerson and Thoreau. Oneself I sing, a simple, separate person, yet utter the word democratic, the word en masse. Of physiology, meaning the body, of physiology from top to toe I sing. Not physiognomy, and that was trying to determine reading facial expressions. Not physiognomy alone, nor brain alone is worthy for the muse. This is epic language when he's inciting a muse. I say the form complete is worthier far. The female equally with the male I sing. Of life immense in passion, pulse, and power. Life immense, his way of saying the soul. In passion, pulse, and power, cheerful, for freest action formed under the laws divine. The modern man I sing. And the symbol of that modern man is what I was saying, the leaves of grass. The individuals, many thousands, millions, trillions of individuals making up a whole. Individuals all equal, all just as much part and particle of God. Being one in the American democracy. You know, it's really just wonderfully ideal words and ideas. Oh, and there's the picture.
There's the picture.
Uh-huh.